Welcome to the show. Now we are dedicating 1 hour, 60 minutes to this issue of sexual and gender-based violence in Nigeria, based on the latest developments in the country where women are actually crying out, and we've also had some men also crying out as to what is happening within the forums of several homes, houses, and what has been happening across the country. Over 9,000 people are said to have signed an online petition demanding justice for popular gospel singer Ikeotuonye and other victims of domestic violence in Nigeria, which is on the rise. Nwachukwu's death has led to nationwide outrage as well as conversations around marriage, domestic violence, and divorce. The singer was initially said to have died of throat cancer, but friends and family members have alleged that she was the victim of domestic violence. Now, the Abuja commander of the Nigerian police has arrested Peter Nwachukwu, the late gospel singer's husband. There were allegations, which were later confirmed by late Osinachi's older sister, that the husband actually kicked her in the chest, which led to her being hospitalized following a blood clot.
The Osinachi's husband you are talking about, we just speak to him. We are still investigating. We want to know what really happened to her death. What is the cause? So he's under investigation.
Well, the police there speaking. For more on this, I'm being joined now by Dr. Jackie Ikeotuonye, who is a victim of domestic violence herself and also the Chief Executive Officer of BFA Integrative Health and Wellness Clinic. And we'll be discussing this alongside other activists who will be joining us later on the show. So good to have you here, Dr. Jackie. Let's talk about this issue and how it's usually a private issue between a husband and his wife, and eventually it's something that's done in hush-hush until it becomes thrown out in the open, not because both parties want it to be thrown out to the public, but because, in one way or the other, we see the issues of violence coming in or deprivation of some sort. Just tell us why this is on the rise and your own experience.
Thank you so much for having me. Sometimes you just ask yourself, what exactly are we doing when we want to hide certain things from people? But you see, because of the society we live in a society where everybody wants to be seen as the perfect person, the perfect couple, the perfect marriage. You look at social media, everybody is celebrating their husband's birthday, my eye, my lord, my head, my honor, my this, The man goes, my wife, my idol, my this. Everybody wants that, But however, in reality, it's not so. On Saturday, when I heard the death of Osinachi, I've always enjoyed her music, but I've always known that there's something that is not, because I remember when I used to, the time I was married, sometimes when I'm singing worship songs, I'm shedding tears. Not necessarily from being in the presence of God, but it's from certain things happening in my life. So when I listened to her songs, I said, no, this reminds me of, because I didn't know what she was going through till she died. And that Saturday, I just lost my peace. And I said, I need to look for the family. And a patient walks into my clinic that day and was like, why are you looking like this? I said, this Osinachi's death is bothering me so much, and I need to reach out to the family. He said, oh, I know them, and that was how I connected with the family. I've been there to the house, listening to the children and the sisters and all that. On Wednesday, I was at the mortuary, and I saw her corpse preparatory to autopsy, And one thing that ministered to me was that as I looked at her corpse, I said to myself, this could have been me. I needed to, maybe that was why, like the Lord asked me to go there, because that kind of gave me a closure to my own, sometimes you think you have healed completely, but it's not always like that, because the only time you have healed completely is that you can actually now come out and begin to talk about it, not talk about it because you are seeking vengeance or something, but talk about it so that other people can learn from your experience and also begin to know that there is hope, that they don't have to die in that. Now, when you talk about my own experiences, you know, there's what we call, you know, over time I've discovered that there's a kind of domestic violence we call gaslighting. Gaslighting is one of the most dangerous types of domestic violence because you are made to be the one that is abusing. It looks as if you are the abuser. The one that is abusing you plays the victim. When he talks about it, talks about everything that happened, you know, over and over and over, you begin to see yourself as the problem. That's part of what Osinachi may have gone through. Because being in her house that day when her pastors came, I was there. And Pastor Nature was in shock. People were saying, oh, Pastor, he told me this. Pastor, he told me that.
Yeah, I mean, we've read his
you
own,
understand?
Account of
I mean, I was there. And I saw
what he had
shock.
experienced, what he had been told by the deceased.
And
but I just want to set this record straight,
yes.
that the police is still investigating this. We can't conclude right now that the husband actually killed her. There's an autopsy report that's been awaited, but we have heard lots of things, including from the children of the deceased.
You know, there are different ways to kill somebody. You don't have to like kill somebody physically. I remember in my own case, I remember 2 days to my wife carrying, I got a slap. And in a normal situation, some people wouldn't go ahead. But like every other young girl, I set out to marry. I wanted to have a home. My husband, myself, my children. I wanted to have 7 children, 4 girls and 3 boys. You know,
you had already dreamt about it.
And I wanted the girls first, you know. But I just realized that as time went on, by the time I had the 3rd girl, it was as if I had committed a crime.
By not giving birth to a boy.
You know, I grew up in a home. My father was, I think, the 2nd or 3rd senior advocate of Nigeria from the Southeast. So he loved us, the daughters. So I thought that's how every man loved their daughters. So it was a rude shock, you know, having my 3rd girl. I was expecting my husband to rejoice with me. And it was as if you have finished me, you have committed a crime.
Yeah, but you actually said during your wine carrying that you received
2 days to the wine carrying.
Yeah. Okay, 2 days to eat. You received this, you know, smack by your husband to be. What effort did you make to actually let his parents know about that incident? Did you also tell your dad or your mom about it? Or you just thought it was part of, you know, the entire marriage thing? No,
you know, telling my dad was out of the question because he would have ended that marriage there.
And you were afraid of losing the marriage yourself?
Because you have gone too far. 2 days to wine carrying, how do you call off, you know? And I didn't tell anybody. It never even came up. We just made up. And you see, let me tell you something about some of these abusive relationships. If you've lived for like 5-10 years, every day is not just about abuse. There are moments of laughter, moments of cracking jokes, moments of friendship and all that.
Family outing and
you know, that kind of thing. But there are certain things that will not just go away. You see, especially like I got married to a very toxic person who is very verbally toxic. Certain words stick to you. It's so difficult for you to forget. But you don't want to tell anybody, you don't want to be seen as, you know, like we've been told in church, a good woman builds her home. You don't want to be that bad woman that did not build her home. So you continue with that. It doesn't matter how difficult it is. I mean, like...
Yeah, but having gone through that, sorry to intrude here, having gone through that, if you weigh the physical abuse with the emotional abuse, I mean the verbal abuse, which of them actually struck you most as the strongest, that weighed you down, that made you think so bad about yourself and all of that?
The verbal abuse, because I lost my self-esteem. I had no self-esteem. You know, all this one that now we talk about purpose, your plan, your goal. I didn't know what that was. Verbal abuse, you know, like when somebody tells you things that shakes the very core of your existence. Sometimes you think, oh, you've forgotten, because you keep forgetting. That's how we end up with 4. Okay? Because
it was just hidden there in your subconscious mind.
It was there in the subconscious mind. And and of course, you know, I grew up in a home where my father loved me so much. So when I was getting married, a lot of people said, "I know this one, she won't stay. She will soon come back. Her father won't let her," you know. So I was out to prove them wrong. That's how come we spent 10 years.
So you had a personal challenge actually
yes.
to your own self.
Yes, you
wow.
know. So I wanted to prove them wrong that no, I can make this work. And that's how come I was able to tolerate a whole lot of, I mean, it's a book, you know, because I mean, we can't go through. I remember when I had my last baby and some friends came to visit. By the time I had my last baby, I had started working. So I wasn't threatened by any, you give me money or you don't give me, it's none of my headache, you know. And some friends came to visit and he was in a mournful mood, you know. So the lady was like, what happened to Jackie? What happened to Jackie? He said, didn't you hear what happened? That she had another girl, you know. So the girl was like, is she okay? Like, is that why you look so mournful? She had the 4th girl. So for me, you know, maybe for me, what matters to me was that God helped me, because the kind of buttered upbringing I had, you will think this one won't be able to go into the labor room and come out. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
A lot of them said it, because when they saw me, when we first got to the village, they said, this one, can she even enter labor room? See the way that, you know, that kind of thing. But God was so faithful. I walk into that labor room, I step out. So by the time I had the last one, I had the baby 31st. By the next day, which was a new year, I was already in my office in Linkserve, asking the accountant to process payment for me so I can pay my hospital bill, you know. But after that, I knew that it can never be the same anymore. And the remaining 1 year plus that we lived before he left the country, it was like two strangers, you know.
Living in one room.
Living in.
Now, let's talk about the role of discussion. I mean, this is someone you love, you profess your love to, and he loves you too. Isn't there room for discussion? Did you have enough time to have a heart-to-heart discussion as to what exactly the problem was? And if it was the issue of giving birth to 4 girls, like you have said, what could happen next? And since it wasn't within your control or his own control, I mean, based on science, it's more on his own part than you. I mean, did you have this heart-to-heart discussion?
I wouldn't talk about, you know, things get to a point where it's no longer heart-to-heart discussion. Everybody is trying to run their own and maintain their own lane, even though everybody is still living in the same house, you know. Because I remember, you know, like some of the things I share with my siblings after everything was over and all that, they keep asking me, when did this happen? You mean you actually went through all this, you know? You have a discussion with somebody who actually wants to hold a discussion with you, okay? When the person sees you as his problem, there's nothing to discuss, because already there are some preconceived notions that you already, you know, like, it's your fault we didn't have a baby boy, your mates know what to do to have a baby boy, it's your fault my business collapsed, it's your fault. So I was the one at fault. He was so perfect, there's nothing, everything fantastic about him. Yes, you know, he even up to this moment. And that is how, you know, like, those who practice that gaslighting abuse, that's how they behave. If you speak with him and hear his own side, you will say, bring Jackie, let's kill Jackie. Do you understand? Wow. Because he doesn't think that there's anything he has done wrong. I am the one that was left to single-handedly raise 4 daughters. Now, train them up to the university level. Now,
do you think that his family upbringing or his own family may have had some influence? I mean, the extended family would have had some influence as to his own outlook. I mean, sometimes also men have been trained to think that, I mean, once you just get into marriage, you're just going to get boys and girls and all of that. But people are not properly groomed to know that it could actually go the other way around. And it could actually mean that both of you will be in the same house for years and don't even have kids. Was there any particular role that the extended family played that could have been helpful to keeping this marriage? And then when the abuses started coming, did you seek their help? What sort of support did they offer? No, they didn't offer any support, in the sense that, one, he was the first child, and his background also played a major role, because what I see him do and what people who know them see him do was the same thing his father did to his mom. Okay, so there's that influence of background. So there's a cultural thing there. Yes, you know, influence of background. And I also remember, you know, at a point, that time, sometime when he traveled, I had
out of my own magnanimity, said, let me go and visit the dad, you know, in the village. So I gathered everybody, we went to visit grandpa. And when it was time to go back, he didn't see why I have to go back to town. He said, what are you going back to Lagos to do? After your husband is not in Nigeria. What are you going back to Lagos to do? Stay here with the children. I said, no, they have to go to school. School for what? What's the essence of training girl children that will go and marry? You know, so you can see that kind of, so when you are raised by that kind of man, I don't think anybody should expect anything. So talking about the siblings also, they couldn't do much. Even the few ones that, I mean, could have said something, they were too young, you know, to have any influence on him. But right. Of course, the sisters were also part of, one of the sisters especially was part of the enablers. Yeah,
because I mean, we usually see that every now and then. Even women like you would be encouraging their own, you know, brothers to actually do one or two things. But let's take it back to the issue of Osinachi. I mean, you had visited the family, you saw what happened, and so on. Did anyone by chance actually speak to you as to the issue of domestic violence that she must have faced while she lived and was in that marriage?
Everybody, you know, it's a different thing when I was there on Tuesday. It's a different thing when one person just says something. You can say, okay, maybe just this person is not. Everybody in that compound, in that environment, everybody that visited, you know, had tales of horror to share. You know, things like, you know, you don't think any human being could go through. But everybody also had one conclusion. She begged us not to report. She begged us not to say something. She kept saying, Peter will change, Peter will change. I actually got very upset with a lot of them because I said to them, in this day of technology, nobody could send a text message to your pastor. Nobody could send a text message to his wife. Nobody could say anything. For instance, the sister said she came 2 weeks before she died and the man wouldn't let her see Osinachi. And I was like, it was from that point you should have started screaming out to the whole world.
Yeah, I mean,
because I cannot imagine myself, my sister sick, and I come to visit my sister, and you said I will not see. The whole world would, that whole hospital would have heard my voice. It's not possible.
Now let's look at the life of this gospel singer. I mean, she was someone who brought a lot of comfort to a lot of persons through her songs and all of that. A gospel minister in the church. Now, if we look at the account of Pastor Enenche of Dunamis, who happens to be a pastor, this is what he said, that if there was domestic violence that led to or coincided with those symptoms of chest pain and all of that that she had, that she came with 2 to 3 months ago, there is no way I would know. And if there had been perennial domestic violence, there was no way I would have known. So was it so bad that Osinachi couldn't even relate this to her own pastor, a very renowned pastor that could have had some sort of influence maybe on the man?
You know, I did a write-up and I was like saying what would have happened if, for example, she left the relationship or she spoke out. I'm a pastor and I know how some of these things play out in church sometimes. And those are some of the things we also need to address. Sometimes when you speak out, you create problems for yourself, especially where the pastor lacks understanding. Okay? You create problems for yourself. What type of problems? She was in the choir. I'm not saying that that's what would have happened to her, but I'm just like telling you generally why most people don't want to speak out. She may not be allowed to minister anymore, depending on where she is. Do you understand? Now, some
which
will
could
say,
have affected her finances.
It could not just affect her finances, it would affect you psychologically. Because you see, me, for example, personally, at a point, my life was revolving around home, church, office. Home, church, office. Do you understand? So, if anything happens at that church level, where you find spiritual comfort, where you get, you know, yourself, spirit, some upliftment, it's as if your whole life is gone. So, you don't want to do anything that will push you out of that setting, whether by your own making or not. So she would rather, let's keep praying, because a lot of us, we have that thing, oh, let me go through this, looking forward to the day you come and share testimony.
Yeah,
oh,
that the man has changed or the woman has changed,
yes,
and all of that. Because
yes,
violence could actually be both ways. I mean, there are some men who are also suffering from some strong women too. I mean, we've heard of some women beating their husbands and all of that. Now, as we try to round off this conversation, just tell us about the role that, you know, the society should play in helping women out. I mean, I mean, you have a clinic where you operate all of this. People come around, share stories and all of that. The role of counseling, the role of the society in helping to, you know, stop this sort of domestic violence.
You know, not just the society, everybody, we all have a role to play. I know, and it's to the glory of God, He has used me to restore a lot of people to their homes, to their marriages, because whether we like it or not, marriage is honorable. That's what God says. And we are not advocating divorce, divorce, divorce. No. Where there is need and genuine repentance, there could be reconciliation. But where that is not possible, please let the abused victim stay away, even if it's for a season. Why healing?
So is it like separation before divorce, or people can actually go straight for divorce?
No, why I say separation before divorce, so that they can create room for reconciliation, depending on the circumstances. All circumstances, because for me, what may be domestic abuse to me may not be domestic abuse to you. There are some people, like, throughout the time I was married, you chasing a woman or seeing you with another woman was never a problem for me, as long as you don't just give me headache. Do you understand? We quarreled about everything. Oh, I saw you with this woman. I saw you. Sometimes he will go, come back midnight, his food is there. Do you understand?
All right. I'm being told my time is almost up with you. But I just want to ask you, how are your girls doing now? I mean,
oh, wonderfully well. Wonderfully well, you know. They're all in final year law. And it's to the glory of God. I mean, like, you know, when they don't give you that opportunity, the chance that, oh, children from dysfunctional homes, they don't, no. This is a totally different thing. The girls are doing wonderfully well, and we'll all live to tell our stories one of these days.
And by chance, do we still have a situation whereby, I mean, their dad and yourself, at least you still have some family moments, even though you're no longer married?
No. I have healed. And, you know, for me, it's time to move on. It's 20 years. It's 20 years.
And you build yourself to be a very strong woman, because I can see how confident you are of yourself.
It's time to move on now.
And what will you say to those who are struggling right now, or those who are just coming out of divorce and all of that?
Number one, don't give up on yourself. Number two, as much as it depends on you, forgive. I had to forgive. Because when you don't forgive, I see a lot of women in my clinic, cancer, all manner of chronic diseases, they are bitter. You cannot afford to be bitter. I was bitter for so many years. I had health issues, 2 doses of chemotherapy, chronic ulcer, all manner of things. But I have forgiven. I have let go. And God is my witness. If He has any problem and it is within my power to help, I will help. That doesn't mean we're still going to live together. Okay, so I tell a lot of women, don't allow the bitterness and don't take it out on your children.
All right.
Identify, know who you are, and keep trusting God. All right.
We must thank you so much, Dr. Jackie Ikeotuonye. I mean, you've grown up to be a very strong woman yourself. Strong woman of 4, I mean, strong girls too, who are all doing very well. And I mean, it's good news for all of us, because I've got 2 daughters myself, and I pick some strength from you here. You're the Chief Executive Officer of BFA Integrative Health and Wellness Clinic, and we can only wish you well.
Thank you so much.
And hope things will keep moving very well. Thank you so much for being with us.